Hi guys, it's me. I have a review to do on Candies. Daniel Powers Airbrushing with Candies. Fantastic DVD, really is. I've watched quite a few airbrushing DVDs over the years, as you can imagine, and a lot of them are, I mean, they're all well and good, you know, don't get me wrong. I've yet to see one, you know, where I didn't learn something, but a lot of them are watch once DVDs, you know. You watch them once, you see what they've got to say, and then they just sit on the shelf, you know. But this DVD set is very different. There's so much crammed in that, you know, you just can't possibly remember it all. So so you need to keep going back and watching it over and over again for it all to sink in here. Or is that just me? It's a 3-disc set, and there's over 8 hours worth of viewing material on there. You know, it's mind-blowing the amount of info that Dan puts on there. It really is. He's obviously taken a lot of time and effort in getting it right, you know, and he has. It really works. It's you may think to yourself, God, 8 hours, you know, how do you just sit there and watch all that? You know, don't you get bored or anything? No, you don't. He never covers the same thing twice. It's always informative, it's always interesting, and the artwork he produces is phenomenal. This DVD assumes you already have a good level of airbrush knowledge and control. This isn't a beginner's DVD. You know, don't buy this expecting to do dagger strokes and dots. You don't need to be a pro, but you definitely need to be competent with your airbrush. You know, Dan assumes that you are already able to paint with an airbrush. So don't buy this thinking it's a beginner's guide where he'll grab an airbrush and take it apart and blah blah blah. That's not the case. This is for airbrushing Candies. And that's exactly what he does. The good thing about it being a DVD rather than a classroom atmosphere, for instance, is you can go back and watch it. You know, if you're in a class environment, then you can't rewind your teacher, you know. So DVDs are great for that, especially when they have as much content as this baby has. You know, you will find yourself constantly going back and watching bits again, you know, and I even found myself taking notes. But for a guy like me who as you know, I'm a water-based guy, really, just because of the constraints of where I spray. So I very rarely use Candies. It's something I've always wanted to try, always, because candy paint jobs are just so vibrant. They really do slap you around the eyeballs, you know, and you just don't get that with water-based. I mean, I haven't tried all of them, but the water-based Candies I've tried just aren't very good, to be honest. You know, for instance, True Fire. If you want a good, vibrant True Fire, your only choice is solvent Candies. I mean, you can get away with water-based, but it just doesn't have that pop that Candies have. So if you want to do custom painting seriously, or even on a hobby scale really, and you want those good vibrant paint jobs, then knowing how to use Candies and how they work is it's vital, really. So as you can imagine, as a guy who's always wanted to do Candies, but never really got into it, then I was really itching to get this in the old DVD player and have a look. Another good thing is Dan teaches you about Candies from the start, you know, how they work, how they behave, cross-linking, you know, bleed through, their UV stability, absolutely everything about Candies, he covers it. Which is good, because sometimes you get a DVD and they're just like, here's the panel, here's the paint, bang, job done, you know. He goes into the background of how they work, now, everything.
We're going to be looking at some really cool products. We're going to be looking at what a candy is, how to prepare a candy, some of the behaviours of candy and things to look out for when you are utilising them in artworks and airbrushing. We're going to be looking at everything from how to work some really cool tricks and effects right through to full colour artworks and lighting artworks with Candies, some really fundamental principles in there, and pretty much everything in between. We're going to work candy on candy, we're going to work saturation and colour balance, we're going to do look at really important principles when you're doing muraling under Candies. So stick with us and we'll jump right into it.
It's not a case of you'll just grab some Candies, paint something, and if there's a problem, you know, a reaction with the clear or anything like that, you won't know what's going on. You know, he goes into how they work, the things that can go wrong, and a couple of times he makes mistakes on there, which is another thing I like about this. He shows you that he's made a mistake, and he tells you how to fix it. You know, some of the teaching DVDs I've seen, they would have cut that out, you know. You know, some people think that it doesn't look very professional, but that's not the case, you know. Dan says, you know, I did this, it went wrong, this is how I fixed it. You know, it's really good. So, as I've mentioned, it is a 3-disc set. Here you go, look, disc 1, disc 2, and disc 3 is in my DVD player. Because that's the one I was watching the other day. Oh, I've gone all yellow. Well, that's nice. And first disc, as I've mentioned, he does an introduction to Candies, you know, how they behave, principles, etc. Then he goes into demonstrations and tricks. He covers saturation, rust and rivets, and you know, like candy on candy, and what you have to bear in mind when painting stuff that you're going to have under candy. Also, as a bonus on the first disc, he goes into a 10-minute demo on the anatomy of a flame for all those TrueFire buffs out there.
Basically, if you want to learn how to do it, learn from the man who pioneered it, and that's The Secrets of Airbrushing TrueFire by Michael Lavallee, and that's also available on airbrushDVDs.com. Okay, so this is meant more as a companion guide to that DVD. It doesn't replace it. I don't run through the sequencing of it. There's, you know, his DVD goes for almost 2 hours. You really want to get that and learn how to do it properly. But these are just a few things that I think complement that DVD and have really helped some people in my classes really get a grasp on you know, creating better realistic flames. So let's have a look at that.
Disc 2 is effects on mid-tone bases, where he covers how to avoid like dirty halos from overspray, things that can go wrong like that. He also covers monotone portraits and then applying Candies over the top.
We're only going to do about 2 layers of candy on this, if that. We'll build it up in some areas, but as I said at the very beginning of this DVD, you'll be surprised just how little candy is in some of these. These murals, this is one of the key ones, the pink girls that I do on the cars. I've done a few of them. I've done the VW, I've done the WRX and a couple of others. These are the ones where I get constant emails of people saying, I did a black and white portrait, put the pink candy over and it doesn't look like this. Well, this is why, now you know.
Disc 3 covers the teal fairy and fiery skeleton, which you can see on the cover there and there. That's the teal fairy, that's the skeleton. And he shows you step by step on how he painted them using Candies, giving it more and more depth using the Candies, and you know, like using Candies for dramatic lighting effects, that sort of thing.
The next panel we're going to be looking at is basically a multi-layered mural. The one we're going to be using is the Teal Fairy. Now again, as I explained in the very beginning of this DVD set, these jobs like the Pink Girls and the Teal Fairy are the jobs I get the most questions about. I get the most responses to them, you know, people just liking them, and I get the most questions about them. So, but I've broken them down, as I said, into these different variations of airbrushing with Candies. And this one, the Teal Fairy, fits into this multi-layered muraling where it's a mixture of burying a mural under the candy and then reworking the highlights and the candy with the airbrush. So it's really an amalgamation of the two skulls on that first panel and the pink girl we just did, and it's using both those techniques to get this overall techniques to rework your highlights, really push your shadows, really get your hot spots, and give you a really dynamic effect that's very effective, and people really respond to it. So let's jump into it. This next panel, being the Skeleton Warrior, is about lighting with Candies. It's about doing your artwork and then colouring it up, both sort of creating lighting reflections, but also colouring the mural almost purely with Candies.
So all in all, this little puppy is fantastic. And I'm not just saying that, it really is good. Like I say, I'm a guy who uses water-based. I've hardly ever used candy, so I was really interested in checking this out. And I mean, by the end of it, I was just twitching to go paint something, you know. It's very informative, it's never boring, and it's well worth the money. One thing I like about Dan's DVDs though is I don't know, it's not one of those things that you have to have all of them to understand his techniques. Each set, each disc covers its technique, and that's all you need. If all you are interested in is painting Candies, get that, it's great. But if you had all his others, you know, the Power Series Level 1 and the Power Series Level 2, and of course his How to Paint an Xbox 360, they all tie in together. It's kind of like almost like having a master class, you know, a master series of airbrushing tutorials, you know. One technique from the Power Series Level 1, you can apply the technique you learnt from the first disc in the exercise from the second disc, and so on and so forth. It's very cleverly done. I mean, hats off to Dan. It must have taken ages to figure out what he was going to do. I mean, you've seen my tutorial videos. I just sit in front of the camera and go blah 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 blah. It's like total verbal diarrhea at the camera, and hopefully I get my point across. But that's not the case with these. They're well written, they're well presented, and in my mind they're an essential part to any airbrush artist's DVD collection. So the amount of information on these 3 DVDs really is unmatched in my eyes. It's cram full of information and really is the definitive guide to airbrushing with Candies in my eye. It really is well worth getting. And you know, I've I've been airbrushing for years, and as I say, you never stop learning, and the amount of information I learned off of this DVD was mind-blowing. As I mentioned at the beginning, I even had to sit down and start taking notes. There was so much info, you know. And of course, you know, you would spend hundreds of pounds on one-to-one tuition or airbrush classes and that lot to get the level of info that's in this DVD. I mean, its price escapes me at the moment, but you can buy it from here. And you know, as I say, to get the amount of info that's on this disc in a class situation, I mean, you'd be talking multiple classes and a huge expense. It really would. So it not only is it worth getting as a money-saving exercise, but also you will learn so much from this DVD set. So if you're an intermediate to pro airbrusher who wants to get into painting candies, or even if you already use candies, then I highly recommend getting this. It's fantastic, and it's a must in my opinion. Then finally, disc 3 covers multi-layered murals. Or murals. Muriel is a name of a lady who lives next door.